Welcome to Hero's Journey Physio Fitness. Our mission is to empower, inspire, and mentor people to reclaim their health and become self-reliant in their fitness. I'm your host, Dr. Cameron Hogue. Join with me as my co-host, Annabelle Rios.
All right, Doc, we're going live in 3, 2, 1.
Here we go. Man, I was actually just, we're going to talk about stretching today, but,
We got to stretch first.
let me take a little stretch before we start this podcast. Like we said the last couple episodes, follow us on social media. Give us some love. And there's a link tree in the description. We're on pretty much all of them. Twitter is lacking.
Yeah.
We don't talk about Twitter.
We don't talk. It's there.
Yeah. Also, if you follow us on social media, we saw that we are doing the 100 push-up challenge. We are, what day is it today? We are 15 days in. So that's 1,500 push-ups. How you feeling, Annabelle?
My chest is pumping every day.
Yeah, I'm not as sore anymore.
I agree.
They're getting a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it was a couple days ago. Back in the day. It was a couple days ago. I was doing like a back workout. So I wasn't doing any pushing muscles. But my last set, like my 10th set, I ended up blowing past 100. I did like 45 in a row.
Dang, son.
On my last set, I'd already done like 90 at that point.
You know what day it was brutal?
What?
When we were doing push day and we had push-ups. Oh my gosh.
When we did 10 times 10 on bench and still had to get. Oh, man.
German volume. Yeah, that day I was like, oh, my chesticles.
They're quivering. Yeah, so hopefully you've been doing it with us.
Yeah, keep doing it, guys.
Keep doing it, guys. I think the biggest thing that I've been taking away from it isn't just the physical, but like the mental. Like it's becoming part of my routine, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't done it yesterday. Let me drop down and start doing them. So that's been kind of cool to know that you can actually start to make a habit out of things, and who knows?
Maybe we'll do a recap afterwards.
We should,
recap episode.
If I keep up this like discipline doing, I might just keep on after the 30 days. I know we're gonna try other challenges in the coming months, but yeah, it's been feeling pretty good so far. Can't complain.
So
yes,
misconceptions.
Yes, we've been plugging along.
There's many out there.
There's a lot. Today we're talking about stretching. There's a lot of things. People say, obviously, you need to stretch before you work out. Limber up.
Yeah,
they'll
before
say.
Sport, before anything.
Annabelle, this will be kind of fun to talk about. What did you guys do like back in the day before like a baseball
game
or
anything?
wrestling? Yeah. What was kind of y'all's team? Get on the tractor and go out to the field.
There was a lot of dynamic. I call it dynamic now, and there was also a lot of static. It was a bit of both.
Gotcha.
You do your karaoke, high knees, all the different things.
Right.
Your leg kicks, but then you would also do a lot of statics too.
Yeah.
Warm up the hemis and your arms and whatnot. And same thing was wrestling. You would do a little bit of both.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
And
then armbands. The little bands.
Oh, yes.
A lot of those, too.
Yeah, we definitely use the bands for baseball to warm our shoulders and arms up. So we did that for the upper body. And we did some dynamic stuff like arm circles, 90 rotations, like where you're kind of, or where you slap you're hugging yourself. Like we call them huggers. So you kind of like swing your arms back and forth.
Man, you're taking me back now. I forgot about some of those. Yeah.
Yeah. And we definitely do a lot of static. I remember like you'd partner up.
Oh, the shoulder thing when you lift your arm, hold your partner's arm up. Yep. Did you guys ever do those?
Yeah, we would do those. We do like where you'd go to touch your toes, like with your in a V.
Like walking toe touch.
No, you were just sitting.
Yeah.
You'd go down and touch your toes, and we did a lot of static stretching, like in a circle in the outfield. We do some karaoke's and stuff like that, but a lot of it.
It's like a both, right? Static, little dynamic.
A little bit of both.
Some band work.
Because stretching is. I don't know. I feel like it's gone through phases, whereas like stretching is the most important thing in the world. Everybody needs to do it.
To where
to where
don't need it. Toss it out.
Yeah, toss it out.
Wasting your time. Yeah.
So I want to kind of get into, should you stretch before a workout? Should you stretch before, a game or a sport? What do you think stretching is? Like if someone said, Annabelle, what's stretching?
It's just preparing your body for what you're about to do.
Okay. That is probably a more high-level term for it. I think I would agree with that more than maybe what some other people might say. Stretching almost is one of those words where the definition is built into the word. It's like, well, what do you mean what's stretching? Stretching is you stretch.
You define it by using the word.
Yeah, like, how you stretch a piece of clothing out? Like, that's what it is. Something's
definition of stretching.
Yeah.
Stretching.
Yeah, something's getting longer. I kind of just defined it as just utilizing positions to lengthen or elongate muscles or joints. So you're putting your body in various positions with the goal in mind being to elongate. I think because if you think about stretching a shirt, you're like elongating or lengthening that shirt. Same thing with a muscle or a joint. And there's different types. There's actually a lot of different types, but for the average person out there, we're going to talk about 3. There's static, ballistic, and dynamic.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of ballistic until you were talking to me the other day.
So static is how it seems. You're holding a position for a period of time, so that using your body, putting it in a position, but you're not moving. You're just holding. Typically, it ranges from 30 to 60 seconds, and you kind of repeat a couple times. That's on average, if you kind of look in the literature, what people will do. But yeah, that's just static. And then ballistic is a static stretch with like a pulse or some type of bounce motion at the end. So like you bend over to touch your toes, but you kind of like oscillate and bounce at the end.
That's literally what came to mind when you were saying, I was like, hey, it reminds me when.
So yeah, you're going as far as you can go while keeping the form of that stretch.
But not necessarily holding it.
You're not statically holding it. You're like bouncing, trying to get like a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more.
Okay.
And then there's dynamic, and the best way to define this one is you stretching while performing movement, typically through a full range.
Mm-hmm.
You're moving while you stretch, so to speak. So you're not statically doing it, and you're not in a static position with oscillating or bouncing. You're actually like moving your body, typically through like a full range of motion. Now there's other kinds.
Yeah.
I think you were saying like you thought there was like 4 or 5 different kinds, and technically there is. Like in physical therapy, we use different types of kinds of stretching, like contract, relax, where you essentially we don't have to get into it, but you contract the muscle while you're stretching, and then as you relax that muscle, then you can go further. Anyway.
Yeah. I was gonna say isolation, but that's about it.
Gotcha. So there's various types, but for the majority of people, those 3 are going to be kind of what you think about when you think of stretching. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds here. And as I say that because, I want people to be able to follow along. And there's going to be some PT. So ask me a bunch of questions on this because I want to make sure that I'm conveying this well.
Yes.
And I might not. So there's a term we use in PT, and I guess just the medical field, called tone, okay? When people say the word tone, what they're talking about is the amount of tension in a muscle or a group of muscles at rest, okay? So the tone is regulated by the nervous system. You have tone, like your muscles are in a state of tone while you sleep. Basically what this is, so like you're not just a bag of bones. You know what I mean? The nervous system is constantly keeping the muscles in a state of contraction or a state of tension. Not too high, not too low. Does that kind of make sense on what tone is then? Like the muscle has a resting state of tone or tonicity that is regulated by the nervous system.
No, it makes sense, but when I thought of tone, I thought about being toned.
Yeah, don't think of that.
Yeah.
That's also kind of a myth too. You can't tone a muscle. You can either make it bigger and lose body fat, and that makes it look more defined. Anyway.
Dude, we're busting myths left and right in these episodes.
Let's go, baby.
All right, continue.
So what can happen is you can have what's called hypertonicity. So that's where the tension in the muscle or the groups of muscles, they're higher than normal, resulting in the muscle being contracted even at rest. So that if you've ever seen somebody who had a stroke and it affected a certain part of the brain, affecting the nervous system, and you see their like arm, and it's almost like in this like flexed, contracted position at rest, that's hypertonicity. That means the nervous system, the tone in the muscles is really high. And even at rest, without them thinking about it, it is still contracted. Like they're not trying to make it contract. It's just at resting state, it's contracted. And there's different types of tonicity. We don't have to get into that because that's not the point. But there's also something called hypotonicity. So that is when the tension in the muscle or group of muscles are lower than normal. And that's when people have like those floppy limbs.
And they can't even contract.
They can't contract it. So at rest, the limb is just like hanging there. Typically that can be seen like after a stroke, even like some congenital, like some babies are born with more like hypotonicity where they're almost like just a bag of mush. Like there's nothing, the muscles aren't even at rest in a contracted state. The reason
so these are the extremities.
Yeah. I mean, it usually affects like the arms and the legs. Now these are, the hyper and the hypotonicity, those are what happens when there's a nervous system disorder, cerebral palsy, stroke, spinal cord injury. I mean, spinal cord injury is a great example of that because you're paralyzed. The body is in a state of hypotonicity. The nervous system isn't regulating. You can't move. Even at rest, if you were to get their arm and you were to move it around, it would just flop around.
Makes sense.
So those are the extremes. And those are what happen when you have some sort of nervous system disorder. Okay. Knowing that there's the disorders, and then like for the common people, everybody has a resting state of tone. We can talk about tightness and contracture. Are you tracking so far?
Yes.
Okay. So tightness is, so muscles are tight when tone is slightly elevated. Okay, so we're not in that disorder. We're not, there's not a disorder going on with the nervous system, but you might have done something that has increased the tone of the muscles, therefore making the muscles feel tighter. Okay?
Like when you do too many curls and you can't.
So some of that can definitely be from like a workout or from overuse. I think a lot of the times tightness results from, it could like a variety of things, but like not moving your body through a full range of motion. Like if you're not moving your body through a full range of motion, then what happens is your body goes, or your brain goes, oh, we're not using that. I can make that muscle a little bit higher tone in that area, because tightness is a way your body like protects. Your body says use it or lose it. If you're not using it, then I'm going to regulate more of it.
Makes sense.
So that's kind of what tightness is, and that's not a neurological disorder. That just means you have a slightly more elevated tone in the muscles. Now, a contracture is a permanent tightening or shortening of the muscles. So that hypertonicity can lead to contractures, congenital disorders like cerebral palsy. Like if a muscle is actually in a state of contracture, like it's contracted, you have to have surgical intervention to actually lengthen that muscle again. I don't know if you've ever seen like children that toe walk, where they can't like walk with their feet flat. Basically, the gastroc, that calf muscle, becomes so shortened that they actually have to have surgical intervention to lengthen that muscle and be casted. No amount of stretching, static, ballistic, dynamic, whatever, is going to make that muscle long again. It has to have surgical intervention and or medication, what am I thinking here? Botox. Like Botox injections into the muscle to allow it to lengthen.
Okay.
Because Botox, so you can't outstretch a contracture. So what's going on when you stretch then? Okay. So when you stretch, so let's take the easiest one to think about is the hamstrings. Okay.
Yes.
So you bend forward to touch your toes, and you can't touch your toes, but you hold it, then you come back up and you repeat. And what you're seeing is that you're going a little bit further each time. You're not actually making the muscle longer. You're decreasing the tone from the nervous system. The muscle has, unless it's in a state of contracture where it's permanently shortened, your muscle already has the full range of motion. The body is just holding it at that resting tone, and you're sending the signal to the brain for the brain to slowly release more and more and more of the muscle. Therefore, you get more and more and more of a stretch, and you're elongating more and more. But if you were to cut that muscle out, it would be at full length. You could be able to pull it all the way, as long as it can go. But it's the nervous system that is holding that muscle.
So is it true that it's kind of like cheese? They say, a lot of people say, oh, it's kind of like cheese where you can stretch it.
Did you say cheese?
Yeah, cheese. They're like cheese sticks. You know what I'm talking about? Some people compare it to that, like a little cheese stick. Where you can just stretch it out. Is it really like that though?
No.
Yeah.
No, because what that is saying is like it was. It's not like you're.
You know what I'm talking about though, right? Those cheese sticks. I've heard that analogy before.
Yes.
And the muscle is kind of like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's kind of like that. Because what I'm hearing when you say that is like if you stretch a shirt out too far, it's permanently stretched too far. A muscle's not like that. If you pull that cheese stick, it won't go back to the original position. A muscle will.
I see.
So what happens is you're sending that signal to the nervous system to allow that muscle to elongate more and more. Now, it always had that range. Remember, if you were put to sleep and like you went under, your nervous system would also be like the tone would decrease. You would be able to touch your toes.
Wow.
So like, does that make sense? Like, if
no.
If you were to put under anesthesia and the doctor were to push you over to touch your toes, your hamstring would have full length. You wake up, you try and touch your toes, you don't have it. The nervous system is back on. That's why.
That's so fascinating.
I just want to, and that might, you're like, okay.
No, that makes sense. So for instance, whenever you quote unquote stretch, can't touch your toes, and over a period of days, maybe a few weeks, you're able to do it just fine.
Yeah.
Because you're telling your mind and body like, hey.
That is definitely one way on how to do it. I'm going to tell everyone a better way on how to do it.
All right.
So you're stretching, okay? And if you don't move the muscle, so your hamstrings, for instance, in that quote-unquote new lengthened position, the nervous system will revert back to that original tone. Does that make sense? So like you stretched it, and that's why the next day sometimes you feel like, I didn't make any progress. It takes, it takes continuous days in a row, multiple times stretching in order to see results that way. A better way is if you static stretch, following it up with actually then activating that muscle through that full range of motion. Because now what you're doing is you're not just sending the signal to the brain to let that muscle, go further and further and further. Then you're sending the muscle to the brain that I need to contract that muscle in this new range of motion. Your brain goes, oh, we're using it there. Maybe I need to back off a little bit. You weren't using it before, but now you're using it.
Yeah.
So
it's all about the signals that you send to your brain.
Exactly. So the example would be if you did like a static hamstring stretch, so to speak, and then you follow it up with Romanian deadlifts or Jefferson curls where like you're trying to go far down and up. Again, this is with lightweight. You are then contracting that muscle in that new range of motion. Your brain will say, oh, we're using it. And it's more likely or it's less likely to revert back to that original tone.
Our bodies are incredible in how they adapt based on what they need.
Absolutely.
So it makes sense.
And again, you could statically stretch for prolonged periods of time every day, and that will increase your range of motion. Not going to lie. That will work.
But it's a longer approach.
Yeah.
It takes time.
But I would say the best way on how to do it. Okay, so let's say you can't pull your knees to your chest. So like you have tightness in your hips. You don't have good hip flexion. You could sit there and lay on your back and pull your knees to your chest and kind of get that motion working. Or you could work on deep squatting. Because now not only are you stretching it, but then you're activating the muscle in that range of motion. Some of the best mobility I ever had was when I practiced barefoot squatting without weight, just air squats, holding positions, coming back up, holding positions, and practicing that over days, my squat form got a whole lot better without doing any static stretching. Just holding positions, getting out of positions, using the muscles. Yeah.
No, it makes sense.
So that being said, what are some of the effects of static stretching on injury prevention and strength and power output? Okay, so here's just a general question. Why would you want to elongate a muscle before you needing them to contract at full force?
You're sending the wrong message.
You're sending
to
the
your
wrong
body.
message. So that last example, when I said that you're activating in that new range, this is still warm-up stuff. I'm not talking about you're going heavy on Romanian deadlifts or getting your working sets. I'm saying you're contracting the muscle. You're using either the barbell or light weights to then contract the muscle. This is still like a warm-up or almost like a dynamic warm-up. You're not doing this before you go heavy, because why would you ever want to elongate a muscle before you actually need it to contract at full force? You wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
So studies have shown that if you static stretching before workouts can negatively affect performance and potentially could lead to injury because you've stretched it so far that's not able to contract well. Therefore, when that force comes on that muscle, boom, injury.
Maybe that might be something you can do post-workout.
For sure. Yeah, you could definitely static stretch post-workout if that fits your cup of tea. We're going to talk about here in a second if you should static stretch. But I do want to talk about what you should do instead.
Yeah, this is all pre.
This is all pre. Yeah, we're all talking about before a game, before a workout.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You walk into the gym. Do you load 225 on the bar and start squatting?
No, I load 315 and start squatting.
Savage. Okay, everyone other than Annabelle, then, you don't do that. So a couple episodes ago, actually a while back, we talked about the 3 buckets of training. You had sport, you had resistance training, you had cardio and mobility a while back.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about each one and what you should do before that particular exercise. Okay. So sport. The best thing to do before a sport is to do some sort of dynamic warm-up. You know, that moving while you stretch. High knees, karaoke, jumping jacks. For that sport, you want to try to prime your body before the game.
Yeah,
you want to prepping. You want to increase your heart rate. You want to kind of get the blood flowing. You want to get the body ready to do specific movements. So like maybe you start doing some jogs and then a little bit faster and faster. And then by, a couple rounds in, then you're kind of sprinting. That way, when the game starts, you're ready to sprint.
Where would the bands fall into this?
The bands?
Yeah, they were talking about doing how we used to do bands.
So yeah, for soccer. So I'm thinking specifically maybe for soccer, you could tie some bands around your knees, around your ankles, and do some sidestepping. Maybe some kick out to the sides and back again to get the blood flowing into those muscles. It's light. It's great to do. You're not going to overexert yourself. Baseball, doing the bands, hitting external rotation, internal, kind of going through a throwing motion, a reverse throwing motion. Again, priming your body. You're not statically stretching those muscles. You're getting blood flow. You're heating up the system. You're getting ready for the workout. Resistance training. You're going to go into the gym. You squat 225. I would do either some sort of dynamic warm-up or get on a cardio machine. Get on a rower. Get on an upright bike. Increase your body temperature. Get the blood flowing. Then what you want to do is you want to use lighter weights in that exercise and build up to your working sets. So again, if you're squatting, the best way to get ready for squatting is to squat.
I would do some bot squats, body squats.
Start with some body weight squats. Maybe hold the squat position for a little bit. Then you get under the bar. Maybe do the bar. Then you want to do maybe 50% of your working set. Maybe do that for 5 to 10 reps. And then you might want to go 75% of your working set. Do that for 2 to 5 reps, something like that. And then you're ready to squat 225. Your body's nice and warmed up. You've increased the blood flow. You've done the movement pattern. Now you're ready to do the actual exercise.
Essentially, you've told your body, hey, get ready, we're squatting.
Get ready, we're squatting.
Yep.
So why would you want to just statically stretch your hamstrings and statically stretch your quads before you want to forcefully use them in a squat? You wouldn't want to do that.
No.
Maybe afterwards if you want. Cardio, a good dynamic warm-up. If you're about to go on a run, get some high knees in there, get some butt kicks, maybe do some jumping jacks. Again, start maybe the first quarter mile. You're not going at your full pace. You're just slowly starting to warm up with that jog, and then you're kind of to your full pace jog. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Mobility, that's already got a built-in warm-up. If you're doing yoga, they're going to slowly get you into the workout, into the stretches and everything. So mobility, I wouldn't even need to stretch before you do a mobility workout, as long as it's guided by, instructor.
Yeah.
Those make sense on kind of what to do for those?
No, they definitely do.
It seems like basically what we're recommending is dynamic or some sort of cardio or some sort of getting your body prepped for the movement you're about to do.
Yeah, and this is all, again, pre-workout.
Pre-workout.
Or pre-sport, pre-your activity. Whatever you're
Yes.
about to do, getting you ready.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, this kind of makes it sound like static stretching isn't that great. From what we're talking about, it seems like what you want to do is how you train is how you gain. If you want to get better in deeper squat, you should probably work on squatting positions and holding and using the muscles and stuff like that. Should you ever static stretch? Maybe.
It depends.
It depends. It does feel good. I'm not going to lie. You stretch your hammies, if they feel tight from that increased tone, it feels pretty good to kind of get a little bit more
Yeah,
length
stretching your
back.
hips out too, man. It feels good.
It feels good. It's always better to engage the muscles after a stretch. So that's why yoga is good, because you hold these stretches, but then like you stand up and then like, if like you just feel them shake, because now you're engaging the muscles. You're not just sitting holding your toes. Yoga's not bending forward, touch your toes, pull back. You're getting in poses where you're having to engage
Go
the
up
muscle.
and down.
Up and down, hold this, go to that position. So I like it because you're doing the engaging aspect. So therefore you're telling the brain, hey, not only am I asking you to give me more, but now I'm using it in that range, so we don't keep, reverting back to that resting level of tone. If you have pain, gentle stretching can help to alleviate some pain in the short term. I use this in the clinic all the time. Someone's hips are tight, give them a few hip stretches. Oh, that feels pretty good. But that allows me then to do the exercises that are going to help. Okay, now it's feeling a little bit better. Well, now we can do some sidestepping with a band and get that, like your lateral.
When you say static stretching, right? That's what you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
Sometimes I'll do some static stretching in the clinic because it does feel good, but it allows me to do what I actually want to do. Anyway, so sometimes I'll use it
but
there.
also in those cases, you're not getting them ready for a game. You're not getting them ready to do heavy weight.
I'm rehabbing.
You're rehabbing. Most of the time it's band work, body weight, or very, very lightweight, right?
Yeah, hands-on stuff, or we might do that contract relax that we talked about earlier, where I might passively stretch them, but then I have them engage the muscle, and then they relax, and I take more, and then they engage the muscle, and then I stretch them more, and that is that type of contract, relax, engage, relax.
I was just trying to clarify for the listeners out there.
Yeah.
This is one of those scenarios where it could help.
Yes. So I'm more of a fan of doing like a little bit of yoga after a workout, where you're like getting into these positions like child's pose, downward facing dog, maybe like half kneeling rotation, some prone press ups. Like you're moving the body and you're kind of quote unquote statically stretching, but you're not really you're holding it, but you're engaging the muscles. That is a great way to do a cool down, is to do some yoga moves.
I think that's something that we were talking about, because in my mind they seem similar, but if we've talked about it a little bit more, I can see the difference.
Yeah. So again, maybe you should static stretch, but I would definitely work more into dynamic. I'd work more into yoga poses, and definitely using the movement pattern that you're about to perform and scaling it up so you're ready for the working set.
No, it makes sense.
So our conclusion is don't static stretch before a workout.
Yeah, don't static stretch.
Dynamic stretch before a workout, and or cardio, and or the movement pattern you're about to perform. So that's all I got, Annabelle. Boring episode, but
no, this is really good stuff.
Hopefully that can help some people, prevent some injury, get them lifting and getting better.
All right, sounds good. And like we always like telling you guys, remember, you are human. We should not seek perfection, but daily improvement.
All right, see you
guys.